My name is Dan Barrett, and I am the Vice President of the Greater Toronto Area Council for the Public Service Alliance of Canada. And today I'm going to briefly go over an orientation session on chairing a meeting. So, at the request of one of the locals, they're asking for a little bit of information on this one. So, basically focusing on presiding over meetings and how this ties into the operation of the local. So, presiding over meetings, obviously that's linked to the title president, right? So, in the union, most of the time you've got the president presiding over meetings. And this is coming in part from Regulation 12 of the Constitution, which essentially is the PSAC's Rules of Order. Now, this is the book that I have. So this is an older version from about 2002. But a lot of the stuff in here is still about the same. But you want to try and get a current version of the Rules of Order here. The real interesting part about this set of Rules of Orders, other than it being a carbon copy of Regulation 12, which you can get online, is it has a lot of stuff on definitions. So when you're going through the book, it has, after you get through the actual cut and paste from the regulation, you can't quite see it probably, but you go for a glossary of terms, or in English, glossary of terms. So, and that gives you an alphabetical listing of a bunch of interesting sections. And in those sections, you've got just pretty well the basics, the stuff that you need in order to do your thing. It also makes reference to another document, which is Burignon's Rules of Order, which are essentially the rules of order in Canada for parliamentary proceedings. So a lot of unions in Canada use that one. As like going up in school, you might be a little bit more familiar with this one here, which is Robert's Rules of Order, and it's a pretty good book. The first 10 sections of this book really give you an overview of why presiding over meetings is even relevant. But it talks along other things about now this book here is really more for the American Senate, whereas the Burignon's book, which I don't have, that one is for the Canadian system. But a lot of stuff in here is still the same. And for the purposes of this particular presentation, I'm not going to go that deep into it. But I encourage you guys to go out to the library or whatever if you're going to be chairing a meeting. Read the first 10 sections of this particular book because it gives you really good background, and get your hands on a copy of Burignon's Rules of Order to help you get through the main stuff. Also, in the category of recommendations, strongly recommend that you go and take one of the PSAC convention training courses, because it will give you a lot of good basic principles, around quorum and how quorum is essentially maintained within the meeting. You've got people tiling doors and things like that at convention. When you're in a local, it's a little less formal, but still the same concepts apply, right? So you've got this whole concept of people walking in and out during voting and stuff like that. That's not on. And sergeant at arms and stuff like that need to be appointed to make sure that kind of stuff gets controlled. But when you're running the meeting, essentially the thing that you're really interested in doing is making sure that the meeting operates effectively, and the speakers are recognized properly. People that, like, you have a set agenda, so you got a flow in the meeting, and you want to make sure that the meeting runs as effectively as possible and efficiently, recognizing that you have to address some of the concerns, if not all the concerns raised by the folks who you're basically representing as an elected officer. So in addition to that convention training one, there's also a local officer training sort of scenario, and that one, again, strongly recommended for folks who are going to be doing this chair thing. Might be a weekend or whatnot, but it's a weekend well invested. You can also request tailored presentations from PSAC staff, or even if you're part of a component, from your component reps. You know, depending on how things go, even the Greater Toronto Area Council might be able to send you out something, or do a quick video up like this one here. Um, the local meetings, basically, again, a little bit less formal. One of the really important things is how people are recognized, because a lot of the folks that are coming to these meetings, they may not necessarily know rules of order and things like that, speak out of turn, yada, yada, yada. As the chair, you have to keep order. And essentially, you know, one of the best ways to do that is to create a speakers list. In a convention, it's somewhat natural, because you have people who actually walk up to the microphone. At a local meeting, you're not going to have that normally. You know, you can have it even compounded that much further if you have a component of the meeting that's, you know, on the phone. So you have to look at basically protocols and stuff for recognizing people, and making sure that everybody understands, you know, like, you know, if you're debating a particular question, you don't speak on that question twice, or else you're going to close debate. Certain things like that, that's where the presiding officer has to kind of, you know, make sure that they're articulating, you know, certain aspects of the rules of order, so that the people who are actually doing the business understand the relevance of what's going on. Somebody starts to talk off topic, you have to kind of turn around and say, okay, that's outside the framework of this particular discussion. You know, can you keep yourself to the discussion? The other thing is, you know, you have time limit for speaking. So the convention, or the PSAC Constitution, talks about a 3-minute timeline. And, you know, depending on how much time you've actually allocated for the meeting that's in the agenda, that kind of stuff, again, you're going to have to try and control. The formal piece, that you're really going to have to deal with is you have to know basically how to resolve conflict, and should it arise. So you're not looking for conflict, but if it arises, understand how as the chair, you're supposed to deal with this stuff. Okay, so as the chair, like the Constitution talks about censure, right? And censure being a motion that would come from the floor, not from the chair. Now you can, in theory, you know, say, you know, the chair would be willing to entertain a motion, but, you know, you're not there to solicit disciplinary measures, because it's just going to basically, you know, create possible conflicts. But the members there, you know, they need to understand that if somebody is using profanity or you know, basically saying things that are, you know, knowingly inappropriate, or, you know, misconducting themselves and stuff, they have to know that they're going to be held accountable. And you can't really allow folks to get away with that kind of stuff. Like you have an entire disciplinary system set up in some of the components. So, you know, use those tools if you have to, but within the framework of the meeting itself, you know, you've got these things that, again, you may have to refer to Bernier's rules for a little more detail and stuff. But the PSAC Constitution has a pretty good section in there about censure, and following that is probably your first step to really get things rolling pretty well. So the other piece there, you know, the censure thing. Understand, again, you're not as the chair, you don't basically raise motions of censure and stuff. And, you know, the same thing can come back at you, right? So somebody can raise a motion of censure against the chair if they're misconducting themselves, or saying things that are not funny. When there is a motion of censure, normally you're going to want to have that done by ballot, because and the person who the motion of censure is against would not have a vote on that motion. So the second part of it is an agenda piece. Again, the definition section of the rules of order, you get an outline. It doesn't go in a lot of detail. If you want to make your life a little bit easier, what you can do sometimes is you can put actual time slots on things, and that way you can manage your time a little bit better. So if you have 10 people who want to talk to a subject and you only have 5 minutes, you know, that 3-minute rule thing, that's going to be kind of rough to keep. So you have to try and turn around and say, okay, well, look, this is what we got going. We have 10 people. You got 30 seconds, whatever. If the members are good with that, then that's the kind of thing you want to try and get implemented, so that you can get your motion moving along. Otherwise, it's just a question of, okay, you have three minutes, whatever, and then if we run out of time, we'll have to, order of the day kind of scenario. We'll have to revisit the agenda, see what we're doing. Put your hands on one of these books here, the local officer training book. It has a lot of stuff. Interestingly, one of the most, as presiding over the meeting, one of the really most critical things that you're actually doing there is making sure that the minutes are properly recorded. And of all the people in the meeting, the secretary is probably the most important person to make sure that they understand what's going on, because they're recording, who's making motions and things like that. And their record is going to basically be the basis of how the whole, how the local is going to be operating, because you have, once those minutes are approved, anything that happened at that meeting is going to would be ratified, and you're good to go to get stuff working in the local. So when you're looking at, so I'm going to go backwards a little bit here and just hit from again from this from the officer's handbook thing. And it's on page 41 of the officer's handbook, and it basically talks about minutes, providing a record of discussion, right? Actions, participation, and other useful information. And now it's got 12 things. Okay, most of these things are administrative, right? So that's fine. But when you're doing the agenda and things like that, make the secretary, because as part of the chair, you're going to have to do the agenda. So make the secretary's life easy, and get some of these things already addressed, right? So the type of meeting, is it a general membership meeting? Is it an executive meeting? Is it a committee meeting? What kind of meeting are you dealing with here? Special meeting, the date, the time, who's chairing it. So like one of the things, like if you step down, the secretary has to make note, hey, secretary, the vice president is now presiding over this meeting, or whatever, right? And again, who's taking the minutes, right? So the secretary is obviously the normal person who's going to be taking the minutes. Names of the officers, of the other officers who are attending, how many members are attending. That's an interesting one, because it's not in a lot of other rules and stuff. The adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting, summaries of reports provided. So you only really have to go into what is this report about. In all motions, names of movers and seconders, whether carried or defeated. Okay, so there's your language, carried or defeated. And a summary of important issues discussed, even if there were no decisions made. So a lot of times when you have an issue raised once, if you're going to reopen the issue, because normally you don't address the same issue more than once in a session, and so you need to kind of understand that kind of concept within the otherwise you just rehash the same thing over and over again, and it's may not necessarily be a useful time spent, right? Information about elections, who was elected, and by acclamation or whatever. The time that the thing is adjourned, and also the signing of the minutes by the secretary and the chairperson. So you've got that check and balance thing going, right? So the secretary creates the notes, and then the chair basically he's going to, or he or she is going to basically sign off on them. So all in all, you've got when you're presiding over the meeting, you got to keep these kind of things in mind, so that you've got a good flow of the meeting, and it's not going to put people to sleep. It's like if you're doing this thing properly, it's like it's like a play. You've got a script. You're going to try and follow the script to a degree, but there's a whole bunch of stuff that gets ad-libbed. People from the audience are participating if you're lucky, or like from the membership, and all in all, it can be a really exhilarating sort of event. So I strongly recommend pursuing the position of the president and whatnot of the local. And again, if you need any further information on this one, you can check out our website on PSAC Ontario under GTAC, and follow us on Twitter. And thanks for watching. Ciao for now.